Thank you for joining today's webinar on simplifying GRC with ServiceNow Integrated Risk Management. My name is Tim Lee with Cerna Solutions, and we are proud to be doing another co-sponsored webinar with ServiceNow. And one of the reasons we wanted to do this one specifically is we know a lot of our customers are asking us, what's the difference between GRC and the newer offerings around IRM, and what does that really mean for their organization? So what we hope to do today is demystify what these two offerings are, really give you a better sense for what they mean for your organization, and really how to give you a strategy around getting started and making a plan for your organization. I am honored to be joined today by Don Harlan and Tommy Lamont. Don, can you go ahead and just give us a quick introduction?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Tim. So Don Harlan, I'm a solutions consultant with ServiceNow. I've been on board for about 4 years. Actually, today is my 4th year anniversary, and I focus specifically in security and risk. So everything technical as it relates to integrated risk management or SecOps is our bailiwick.
All right, fantastic. And Tommy?
Yeah, I'm Tommy Lamont. I'm a principal consultant with Cerna Solutions. I work in the security and risk practice. So similar to Don, I work with the IRM modules, the SecOps modules, really guiding customers through implementations, planning out where they should go next. Weird coincidence, I think today or sometime this week is my 4-year anniversary at Cerna also. So didn't realize that.
That is outstanding. Outstanding.
That's creepy. All right, well, let's go ahead and get started then. I know we have a lot of information to get through. By way of agenda, just to give you guys a sense of what we're going to be going through today. First, we're going to introduce integrated risk management, really kind of give an overview of what that means. And then we're going to talk a little bit more in depth about how to identify where you are on the maturity map of IRM and what kind of strategies you can put together around that. After that, we're going to talk about how to improve communications with stakeholders, as well as why that's so important for your organization. And we're going to talk a little bit more about what are some things that customers are specifically doing in this space and what that might mean for your business as well. And after that, we'll just follow up with some extended learning and give you a few resources to continue your IRM journey if that's something that you're interested in doing. So I want to take care of some housekeeping while we're on this slide. If you have any questions during the event, you don't have to wait until the end. It's very much encouraged for you to ask your questions throughout the presentation. One reason for that is we can very often switch gears and talk about something that might be important to you if that is something that if we're not covering the content that you're looking for and you have some information that you're looking to get, we can very easily try to cater to you that way, either during the conversation if it's relevant or afterwards during our Q&A session at the end. One question everyone has is, will I be getting this recording? And absolutely yes, we will be emailing this to everybody that registered to the event, but we will also be making it available on our website, cernasolutions.com, as well as our YouTube channel. So I'm guessing you guys already have your introduction to ServiceNow. If you don't already know about Cerna Solutions, I just want to take a second to give you a brief introduction. We are ServiceNow elite partners that have been focused in the ServiceNow space since 2012. And right now we currently cover the entire platform. So that means if you have projects you're looking around ITX, HR, security operations, or IRM, we are a one-stop partner that you can talk to about that. And we have heavily prioritized areas like security operations and integrated risk management with ServiceNow. And I've been working closely with them pretty much since they first announced the offering as early adopters, because we saw how important it was for our customers to be able to utilize one of the best products for businesses to be able to accomplish some of the most important things around risk and security. So if you have any questions around other projects, or would you like to just reach out to us, you can always go to cernasolutions.com and contact us that way, or leave a question for us in Q&A and let us know that you'd like us to reach out, and we'll be happy to address that as soon as possible. So without much further ado, let's go ahead and jump right into the topic. And for this, Don, I'm going to ask you, can you give us a little bit more of an overview of IRM and what does that mean?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Tim. So there's 2 key points I want to make on this slide, the first and foremost is that ServiceNow is a platform. So the best example I can give you of a platform is actually my iPhone, right? My iOS device. On my iPhone, I have LinkedIn, which is tied to my camera, which is automatically tied to my photo library and is automatically being backed up into Google Drive. Now, I didn't have to integrate any of these applications simply because they live on the same platform. I only had to allow them to communicate. So ServiceNow is that exact same concept, but for a business. So when our founder, Fred Luddy, had envisioned ServiceNow, the whole goal was that any area of an organization could have their own application with their own workflow and process and automation, but be able to effectively route that work across the organization, because we know people don't work in silos, right? And so, same deal. You don't have to integrate these applications. That work simply flows, just like LinkedIn to my camera to Google Drive, et cetera. And so if we look at a lot of these different applications we have on the platform, they very much play into that integrated risk conversation, whether it be things like HR and acceptable use policies. If employees don't accept the policy as it relates to internet usage, there can be legal ramifications there. That presents a risk. Same thing with security, right? If I have a active intrusion on a device, or I have a vulnerability on a PCI asset that's going past its 30-day remediation target, that poses a risk to the organization, naturally. Even IT operations, so a lot of that's about availability and uptime. Let's face it, if some of our critical systems go down for an organization, that presents quite often a financial loss because we're not able to meet the needs of the business anymore. And even IT service management at the bottom at 6 o'clock. So things like change management, going back to that availability again, if we put in place a bad change without a backup plan, there could be an impact to availability that, again, presents a risk. And even customer service, another thing that we do on the platform. A good example here is, I work with a lot of power companies, and you might not know it, but if you put in a request to your local power company, they have a certain period of time or SLA that they need to respond. Otherwise, they are out of compliance with certain regulatory frameworks. And then, naturally, finance. I'm sure we can all kind of understand that one, that providing audit oversight and monitoring key financial controls like account close, to validate that we're managing our financial services in the appropriate manner and we're helping prevent risk to the organization. Sitting at the heart of all of this, why do we do any of this? Well, we're trying to manage risk for the organization at that high level, at that top level, not in each one of these applications as a silo. And so through integrated risk management, we have the ability to look at all of these different applications on the platform and external platform information, which we'll talk about later, to help manage that hierarchical risk at the top level and getting out of managing risk in silos. I don't know, Tommy, did you have anything you wanted to add to that one?
Yeah, so I think in addition to it's all being on one platform, it's very easy for all these applications to communicate with each other technically. That also doesn't just mean from a technical sense communication is easy. I find through a lot of these implementations, ServiceNow really helps break down the silos between departments. So if all of these things are living on the same platform, your IT service management, your IT operations management, your integrated risk management, it's a lot easier for them to communicate, and people are going to work together a lot better if they are on a single platform. Communication is easy, and that's something we're going to talk a lot about during today's webinar. Really, how can people communicate with each other and involve your whole organization, and not just your IRM process, but leveraging the whole ServiceNow platform to make your life easier and make your business more efficient.
Yeah, and I love the example of the cell phone, right? I think that's a perfect idea for people who realize how much a smartphone changed their life, now that they have something that really interacts with every part of their life now. Goes back somewhere to the iPhone. Same thing for your business in terms of being able to touch not just one area like IT, but having that really protection, that level of protection across multiple departments. What about, I think we have the next slide here. I mean, I think we have a few real world examples that we wanted to get into.
Yeah.
If this slide needs any explanation whatsoever.
None at all. It makes perfect sense on how this relates back to IRM, right, guys? So actually, had a couple cool customer stories for you. This one is, I'm sure you're wondering, what does a cow and fat as money have to do with risk? Well, this is for a customer. It's a major dairy manufacturer. If you ever bought a pound of butter or half and half of milk, I'm sure you've seen their logo and their name. And they had a particular application that managed the intake of feed, right? So what is the nutritional content, protein, ash, moisture, what farm did it come from, what time of year was it grown? And then it took that information and it cross-referenced it with the amount of milk fat based on the cows that were fed that certain feed. Why? Because fat is money. Right? If you've ever gone to the store and you buy a pound of butter and a gallon of milk, they're roughly the same cost, but obviously by volume, their amounts are significantly different. So their challenge is they needed to manage this application and understand, is the application supported or is it in hotfix only support? What about the database or the OS? Are they supported? Is it a SOX or a DR application? And so, by actively looking at these fields from within the risk as it relates to the application, it was looking for those adverse situations. And this is what we call continuous monitoring. So the ability to continue to look for things within the platform or external, which I'll share in the next one, that might present a risk to the organization. And in this case, the scenario is it's in hotfix only, server's not supported, or I should say server OS, database isn't supported, and it is a SOX application. That all of a sudden presented a huge risk, and so we recalculated that for the customer, bubbled that up to show that one of their mission critical applications that is absolutely relevant to their bottom line was in dire straits, and therefore it presented a larger risk to their organization and the overall financials. Speaking of financials, this is for another organization, and a couple things I want to highlight here is, one, we're getting completely away from IT risk. The second is we're looking at external information. So for this particular customer, this bank, they wanted to have collateral-backed jumbo loans, and that collateral would be stock portfolios. So what we actually did is we brought in external information on stock prices into the platform, and then tied that to the original stock price of the collateral that was used to back the loan. Now, their requirement is that they needed at least 40% margin on the original amount of the loan with that collateral. If it dipped below 40%, it automatically triggered a flow in our financial services application to then review that collateral, view that loan, and make a decision. Right? At that point in time, it was more up to the loan officer and exactly what it is that they should do. Now, at 25% of margin on the collateral, it triggered a mandatory workflow that would do one of three things. It would either require the onboarding of more collateral, it would suggest the sale of collateral, or it would actually suggest the sale of the loan completely to another higher risk institution. So again, the overall message there is completely non-IT integrated risk management, or GRC, but then being able to bring in external information and monitor on that, or look at external systems and monitor on that to identify areas of risk for the organization that might live in other environments.
Yeah, and I find that automated indicator stuff and automating that's really, to me, one of the more exciting aspects of IRM. Just being able to take that manual work people were previously doing and completely automating it really just shows how powerful ServiceNow is and what you can do with the platform. Those are two great. Go ahead.
Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say those are some great customer stories.
Yeah, I was going to mention that at ServiceNow, using that same technology that you're referring to, we've actually automated our GRC burden by 66%, just by leveraging those automated indicators to look for adverse situations.
Yeah, so a lot of customers we talk to, they hear these stories and it's amazing. They want to get there. They want to automate 60% of their compliance, but they say, we're just starting out on our compliance journey. Maybe we just hired a CISO last year, still building out our team, don't have a lot of things to find. ServiceNow is this really powerful tool, but can we even use this? Are we ready to use it? And the answer I always give is yes. ServiceNow is there throughout your journey of IRM maturity. And what we've actually done to kind of help customers visualize this of where you can start and where you can go is put together an IRM maturity roadmap. So you'll see here, we broke this kind of down into three categories. We have people, process, and technology. And I'll take you through 4 steps we put together here of IRM maturity. So starting down here at 1, it's kind of a disjointed process. This is really when your risk and compliance process is brand new. You don't have a clear delegation of responsibility. Everything's probably falling on one risk or compliance manager or a very small team trying to manage things out of email. The process to get that data is not defined. They're updating spreadsheets manually. They're working towards getting compliant and getting a better picture, but it's tough. There's a lot of manual work, and frequently falls on just a couple people within the organization. Moving up in the maturity here, you start to see, kind of a reactive approach. So we're getting a bit more mature. We have a basic delegation of responsibilities. We've identified that everything isn't the responsibility of that single compliance officer. We have to involve some other people in the business. Those processes are getting documented, kind of who's responsible for compliance, for risk of what applications, what areas of the business, what departments, and those are communicated out. So we have that documented, probably still, some manual communication there, but we at least know who should be doing what. And your data is getting centralized. So, you're getting out of spreadsheets. And this is where we see a lot of people starting to move into ServiceNow. That's kind of the first step there. Get your data in one central location that can be secure and audited and is easy to access, because it's great to find out all this information about compliance and risk, but if you can't go back and see it and report on it, it's not much use. So moving up the next step here, we go from reactive to proactive. So now not only have we identified some people who are responsible, those people are being more proactive about their response to risk and compliance. They're not just every year getting an email asking if they're compliant with something. They're more aware that they have to stay compliant. They have to reduce risk within their department or their applications or whatever area of the organization it may be. And there's policies to identify these kinds of things. So, well-defined documented policies. These policies may be linked to controls. You can do that in ServiceNow. Link your policies to your controls, so what are we trying to comply with? How are we complying it? And you can even link that back to a compliance framework. So, something like NIST or one of the ISO frameworks. You can link that all together in ServiceNow. Now, a lot of people down in the reactive area, they are looking at frameworks, but they might have, a spreadsheet that the framework organization supplied that they're drilling through, trying to find out, are we compliant? Are we not compliant? And then they go to the next one and do it all over again. And you get a lot of redundancy there. You're doing the same work multiple times. ServiceNow allows you to take out a lot of that duplicate work. For example, if you use the UCF plugin, that can actually co-reference your controls across frameworks. So now our single, maybe password policy satisfies compliance across several different frameworks. And now all this data, as we've mentioned, is stored in a central location and integrated to those frameworks. So with the UCF integration, if you were to use that, not only can you deduplicate all these controls in this work, but you can get that information that they store directly from, a list of NIST controls and get those updated as additional controls come out. So moving up here into kind of our final state of maturity that we've identified here we called it managed. And this is where your entire organization is really very risk and compliance aware. It's not an afterthought. It's not, we have to do this yearly, fill this out. It's everyone's proactively aware of risk and compliance across the organization. And you can also start to automate some of this. So back to those automated indicators Don was talking about and that I mentioned earlier. Not only are you checking for compliance and monitoring your risk, you can integrate and automate those to get that data back automatically and really get an up-to-date picture of your risk and compliance posture. And then you can have that in a kind of single intuitive view. So we're not just storing all this data in ServiceNow and then having a compliance manager pull reports, but we have a one-stop view, whether that be dashboards or a portal, where stakeholders can go in and see how they're doing. So a department head can go in and see how's my department doing with our relevant compliance, or executives can go in and say, how's the organization as a whole doing? What's our risk posture right now? Really tying everything together and giving people access to see that information and act on it and be aware of it.
So Tommy, I have a question. I know I work with a lot of customers. I know you work with a lot of customers, and people are always wondering, where am I at today? Where do I want to get to? And where do you usually see that people start on this maturity scale when you begin your conversations with them? And then, likewise, during your initial engagements, where do they typically end? Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Yeah, and that's a good question. A big part of the reason we put this together. I should reference here, this is kind of a consolidated version of our roadmap. So let us know if you want to see the full version or walk through it with us. We can take you through that. Because that is a lot of people we talk to, they're not sure where to start, where can they go. Like I said, they know ServiceNow is this powerful tool, but where should we go with it? So we see a lot of people starting between kind of that 1 and 2 step. They might be somewhere in the middle. This isn't quite, you don't fit in one silo. You might have your process a bit more clearly defined, but maybe your technology hasn't quite caught up yet. So what we do, we identify where those people are. Like I said, between 1 and 2 is most common, and then through the ServiceNow implementation, really move them up through the maturity roadmap. Definitely right away, just implementing ServiceNow, you can get to that proactive stage. So you're getting everything defined. Your policies are documented, related to controls. That delegation is kind of a byproduct of implementing ServiceNow. Because when you're going and implementing a tool and making sure your processes are defined, it forces you to look at, who is actually responsible for this. If you have applications that have policies that need to be enforced, yes, the compliance manager is monitoring it, but who in the business is responsible for actually implementing those policies? So ServiceNow really helps you define that as well, and then have it recorded. After that, depending on the roadmap that the client's looking to go through, we'll see them move up to 4 a lot of the time. So once you have all this process implemented, you're aware of where you're compliant, where you're not compliant. That's where automation starts to come into play. You can identify, what's taking a long time in our process of compliance or risk, and let's start to automate some of those indicators, and let's give people a better view into that. And that's where that really takes you up into that managed state of IRM.
Yeah, and I think this is an important guide for people to be able to use. And if you want sort of the more filled out guide, you see there's a link there. If you just go to cernasolutions.com/guides, you will have access to this, and you can kind of zoom in and probably get a little bit more detail that you need. Or obviously give us a call, like Tommy said, and we're happy to work with your organization on that one as well. But yeah, let's move on to the next question that we have, which is around how to improve communication with stakeholders. One thing I want to remind the attendees right now, if you do have any questions, definitely feel free to throw those into the Q&A. I don't see any right now, but don't wait until the end. Definitely feel free to let us know what your thoughts are or what questions you have, and we're happy to try and engage you on that as soon as possible. But let's jump into our next topic. So, Tom, you want to go to the next slide real quick? So yeah, so tell us, Tommy, give us a little bit more of the overview here and why this is important.
Yeah, so kind of in that 4th stage of the maturity map I showed you down in the bottom right, we talked about communication, we talked about visibility. So I just picked out a couple examples here of how ServiceNow helps you do that. So a lot of customers we work with, their process is very manual. They're walking by people's cube to ask questions about compliance when they're doing audits to see if you're compliant. They're emailing out, maybe many emails are going out, every week. They have to track people down, back and forth, gets lost in the inbox. It's a very difficult process to track. So what ServiceNow does is takes all of that whole process and centralizes it in one tool that you can easily track. One example of that is attestations. So when you need a department head or a director or application owner to attest that they're compliant with a certain control, you no longer have to email that out and hope they reply to you and it doesn't get lost in the inbox. You can create an attestation, which gives them notification, easy link back to come fill out, get the questions asked that you need to ask them. They can submit those, and then as a compliance or risk manager, you automatically get notified when that comes back in, can review that, approve it, and take that into account with your compliance process. Similar to that, audit templates and tasks. When you're doing an audit, there's a lot that has to be done. So you can create these audit templates, which allow you to identify what are these things we have to do, what are the steps for an audit, and pre-create those. So when you go to start an audit, you say what you're going to audit, and then your audit tasks get automatically spawned off. And again, those are just assignable pieces of work that you can assign to people, track when they're supposed to be complete, are they getting completed, see what percentage your audit's at based on how many audit tasks you've completed. Really streamlining the process, getting you out of email. Similar note, risk assessments, just getting your business's input on risks. It's a lot easier to do that if you're not emailing back and forth. Making things easy for people, I find, is really the best way to get input from them and get everyone involved in your risk and compliance process. Because if it's easy to do, people are going to be more proactive about it, and you're going to get faster responses. With all of these attestations, audits, risks, issues come up. So issues in ServiceNow are basically problems across any of these areas. If you're familiar with the IRM suite, you'll see issues a lot. For example, attestations. You might have someone say, no, we're actually not compliant with this for some reason. What you can do there is automatically create an issue, which is just another record, a task that you can assign to someone. And then you can actually see who is responsible for that issue, when do you expect it to be resolved, and track all your communication about that issue right in that one task. So again, really just getting out of email and being able to track all your communication and your deadlines and how you're doing in completing issues and tasks like that.
Yeah, there's something you said there, Tommy, that I kind of want to double down on, and you said it a few times actually. It's that communication process, right? Those reminders, those notifications and emails that are going out to people. That's something ServiceNow is really good at, right? We have many out-of-the-box SLA and notification workflows because, let's face it, nobody wants to go over to someone's desk and put a sticky note on or continually follow up via email or text messaging. So, let the system do the work for you. Let it do that minutia, send out those reminders, send out those tasks, do the escalations or reassignments. It's something it's really good at. The other thing is, when you start talking about attestation and assessments, just like to highlight, these are really up to you as the customer and what they look like, what the questionnaires are. If you've ever done a SurveyMonkey Designer, it's very much like the same thing. So you design those questionnaires. It's very flexible, easy to use, easy to get that engagement out of those folks that are directly responsible for the systems as it relates back to the controls. So again, getting into that distributed IRM model there as well.
Yeah, and that really gets back into make things easy. Not only are we making it easy for people to answer these surveys, answer these questions, communicate with us, but as a risk manager, it's easy to update these attestations, figure out what you need to ask customers. And ServiceNow is really it's really one of the big highlights of using ServiceNow, and they're always improving what you can do with your communication. So cherry picked a couple new features here we've seen in IRM. These aren't necessarily new just in Paris, but just probably the last 6 months to a year. Some features that kind of stood out to me as really improving communication. So the first one I have here is consolidated assessment responses. And this goes back to those attestations that we were talking about. Sometimes you have someone that's responsible for a lot of maybe applications. They have a lot they need to be compliant with. You need them to attest for a lot of it. Sometimes it might be very similar questions or the same question. For example, if you want to check if someone's application is compliant with a password policy, maybe they own 10 different applications, but the password policy is all managed in AD or in Okta. So we know it's compliant because they use those for single sign-on. So they're going to answer yes to all of those 10 applications. So what ServiceNow allows you to do is just combine those attestations. So we can say, for these 10 applications, yes, I'm compliant. Let's attach the evidence. Here's the evidence, and submit that. And again, make it easy. We don't want them to have to go through and select yes 10 times, attach something 10 times. And you can just combine that all into one place. Similar new feature is audit evidence requests. Again, in audit, there's a lot you have to get done to complete those audits, one of which is getting evidence. So sometimes you need some evidence from someone that's not directly involved in the audit, and can be hard to communicate that via email. They may need to go in and pull some evidence from their application that they're an administrator on. You're sending emails, trying to follow up. What ServiceNow allows you to do is create this audit evidence request and then spawn a task out for it. And what that will do is notify that application owner or that administrator or whoever it may be that you need information from, and give them steps on what you actually need. So for example, a list of all changes in the last quarter, review of completeness, and then backup procedures. Send that out to the person. They know exactly what you need for them. You can track whether it's been done or not, and they can respond right back to ServiceNow with that information and keep it all in one place again. You don't have to dig through your inbox to figure out if this is complete or not.
Awesome. Yeah, and so getting back towards that, integrated risk management conversation, I think I mentioned in the beginning, one of the other solutions we have on the platform is vulnerability. It's very common within a vulnerability program to need to put in place an exception, and sometimes that's because there's no fix available, or you're waiting a maintenance window, or something of that nature. But when we start looking at a lot of the frameworks, whether it be NIST or PCI or ISO, a lot of them are going to require things like the vulnerability program. And I always like to use the example of, let's say we're dealing with a PCI-based system. Well, if it's critical vulnerability, you have 30 days to meet that remediation target. So, a new feature that we've added is if you request an exception, in parallel to creating that vulnerability exception, it can actually create a policy exception as it ties back to that vulnerability where we might have a potential compliance issue. And so then that policy exception has its own life cycle, just like the vulnerability exception, with expirations and approvals and perhaps risk assessments. And that is a fully automated process. So no longer do as a vulnerability manager have to go to a separate portal or somewhere else to put in place a policy exception to make sure that we're managing our compliance program appropriately. Similarly with security incidents, if we look at in that same example, let's say we had a critical vulnerability with known exploit, and then it got exploited. Well, now we're dealing with a security incident. There's an active intrusion or malware on a system, and so of course that presents a risk to the organization. And we've talked a little bit about indicators, but with security incident, what we can actually do is report a risk event, and that's part of our advanced risk management program, if you will. And so that gives us the ability through a single button to say, yeah, we actually have an issue right now on a critical piece of infrastructure. And so for the risk that is tied to that CI or that infrastructure, we would actually generate a risk event. And then perhaps, based on that and SLAs, if we're not tracking well against that, or we're having an issue managing or resolving that security incident, just like in the customer stories I shared earlier, we can actually see that risk being recalculated, called calculated risk, because there's a risk event that's posing a large risk with an active infection to the organization. So again, just getting towards that, more integrated risk and tying these different things together.
And actually, just to jump, I see we had a question here about, is there an exception process? So that jumps back to what you were talking about, vulnerability exceptions. So ServiceNow has always had a policy exception process. So when you have policies, someone can raise an exception request against those, and there's a workflow behind that. But not only can you just go view a policy and click request exception, it's now tied into vulnerability, like Don was just speaking about. So directly from that vulnerability, you can request an exception, and really gets back to that kind of integrated risk management picture where we're not doing these things in silos. They're all tied together and can all easily communicate across the different applications and across departments within your organization. So a couple other things I wanted to hit on here. We've talked about some of the kind of base features of ServiceNow. I wanted to give just a couple examples of interesting things that we've seen customers do. So these are some things maybe you might not hear about as a basic use case, but some exact use cases that we've seen people accomplish. First one here is contextual attestation views. So we had a customer, they did have an attestation process already stood up. They were implementing ServiceNow. Heavy attestation users, sending a lot out to their relevant business stakeholders. Those business stakeholders wanted a little bit more information when they were filling out those attestations. So not just are we compliant with the control, they wanted to know, information about that control. What framework does this align to? What policies are this associated with? Are there any issues open it? So we created a nice portal-based view where they could pull all this information together right into one screen. And again, just going back to that, making it easy. When they're doing this attestation, they get all that information pulled together and don't need to navigate around to a bunch of different places. They could see it all together. Another kind of specific attestation use case is automated access attestations. We hear about this use case a lot. Specifically, we had one with a data reporting company. Access was very important. Data is their company's life, so they need to make sure their data is secure. So they had a very well-defined access attestation process that they were doing, I think, every quarter or so. So they had a manual process where they were kind of running some scripts, querying AD, querying Okta, pulling things back, managing, putting that into a spreadsheet, sending that out to the application owners via email. Application owner would fill out the spreadsheet, send it back, manually look at that, figure out if anything's wrong, and kick off a process from there. And really, that was taking them. It was almost like when they were done with the first quarter's audit, they had to be starting the next quarter's audit because of how long that took. So what we did with ServiceNow is created an automated indicator for controls that were around access, that were driving these access attestations. And that allowed them to automate this process. So what we did was pulled information into that automated indicator from Okta in this case. So finding out who has access to what applications, pulled that into ServiceNow, used a tool in ServiceNow called data certification, which then allows you to basically look at a list of records, which in this case is users that have access to a specific application. Send that out to the application owner. They'd see that list in ServiceNow. They can check off, yes, this is all good. All these people should have access. Or they can say, no, maybe these two people in here, they are in a different role now. They no longer should have access. That would then be communicated back to that indicator, roll up to that control, and could then affect that control's compliance. So you could get that updated in real time. So phase 2, we actually took it a step further. Not only could the application owner say, no, this person should not have access, we expanded that Okta integration to then enable it to go out and remove that access. So not only were we identifying compliance issues, but we were resolving them right away in an automated fashion. So, taking that quarterly process from a long multi-month project down to pretty much instantaneous and just needing the application owners to fill out that information. I am going to jump over here too into just a brief demo of some what we've done for enhanced views for business users and kind of some relational views across IRM. So we hear a lot of people asking about, they have a lot of people that work with ServiceNow. They're not in the tool all the time though. They're doing attestations quarterly or yearly. They have some approvals and issues to review, but they're not in there all the time. They wanted kind of a direct view. So what we've done several times is put together portals for people. Customers that want this kind of view. And we've actually rolled this into what will soon be a store application. So this is just an example of what we're going to put out on the store. And this is a Cerna product. So this integrated risk management portal, kind of based on what we've seen from other customers, other projects we've worked on, what people are looking for in a portal. So a couple of simple things up front here. Just get right in front of you, what do I need to do? What are my tasks and issues? What approvals do I have pending me? We see our issues here. We see our risk acceptance plans. Make that easy for stakeholders to come in here and complete those. They also can come in here and request things. So like those policy exceptions, submit those. Gives kind of your IRM team its own space in the catalog to have requests. So a big ask about this was the company does have an IT portal, but the IRM team kind of wanted their own space that they could really configure and tailor to their IRM process. So this really allows that with things like viewing policies as well, browsing more reports. One more cool feature we had here that I wanted to show is this kind of, I've talked a couple times about relational data and contextual data. So you have tons of data within ServiceNow, and you want to be able to use that, to look at it. So what we did here was kind of give a different spin on that view and have this data explorer, we call it. And what this does, similar to kind of a related list, but in an easier to see view, is you can open up a record like a policy or control objective and see all control objectives and policies that are related to that. And coming down here, you can also see visually, not only, what are the records, but how do they all relate? So we have this main policy we're on, and we see, what controls is this satisfying? So use the password policy example a lot. So you can see our one policy is satisfying all these controls. And you could drill into these different controls if you want to see data about that exact controls. Do we have other policies related to it? I don't want to spend too much time here. I want to make sure we have time for questions, but if you see anything here you're interested in, definitely reach out. We can do a more in-depth demo of what this looks like, or I see we've had a couple questions about demos for other parts of the application. So definitely feel free to reach out if you want to see a demo on anything more, or some more information about what these things actually look like in ServiceNow.
All right, great. So, and you're right. We do have about 5 minutes left of the webinar. We wanted to make sure that we were able to cover some of the questions that we saw that were coming in. But we want to also make sure that you have the best resources if you have more questions about this and want to do a little bit more exploring on your own. Go ahead, Tommy. You can move to the next one there. So one item coming up that's actually very exciting is ServiceNow's very first Operation Risk and Resilience seminar series. So you can see here now, obviously you cannot click on the screen right now, but we will be making this link available to you. But we have a very exciting summit coming up with ServiceNow if you're interested in learning more about the security space and how looks like Sam just put that link in the chat. So yeah, definitely go ahead and click in to register there. This is a very exciting opportunity to roll up your sleeves and get your elbows dirty with what's happening in security and kind of understanding more and working with the ServiceNow team to better understand what's available to you and what that means for your organization. We also have a few additional pieces of content available for you on the Cerna side. If you go to our website, cernasolutions.com, or go to Cerna Solutions YouTube page, we have tons of content around ServiceNow, but also specifically focused in security and risk and integrated risk management. So as you see, there's just a few samples of some of the types of quick tutorials and demos that we've already made available to you from our team. And we also have a few additional pieces of collateral that you can use for your own resources. We have an IRM assessment that is available to you if you go to cernasolutions.com/IRM-evaluation. Again, we'll be making that link available to you as well. This gives you a questionnaire which is a quick assessment for you on your end, but that can also lead to, for qualified customers, a 1-hour free evaluation with our team. And that will help you understand more of where you are in the maturity model and kind of what type of strategy you can be looking forward to for your organization. If you want more access to the guide that we had mentioned before for the maturity model, you can go to cernasolutions.com/guides. Looks like both of those links are now available in the chat as well. I highly recommend going in there and accessing that information, as it's extremely valuable to our customers, and we've gotten a lot of great feedback there. I want to take some time right now just to make sure that we answer a few of the other questions that I saw come through. And actually, I see that we've been proactive. We've been answering a few of those already. But one I wanted to make sure that I want to make sure that we were able to take live. So it looks like someone had a question around, does NIST CSF 1.1 ISO 27001 controls auto-populate with IRM, or do you need to configure that yourself? Don, are you able to address that?
Yeah, absolutely. So if I understand the question correctly, it is an automated process with a minor configuration. I think Tommy alluded to it earlier about the UCF integration. So when we tie in with UCF, you simply have to select which frameworks that you would like to you bring into the platform. And at that point in time, it will bring in all the associated, what we call citations, but it controls associated to that framework into the platform. And then from there, I think Tommy also talked about this. What you can then do is tie that to your own internal policy, standard, and procedures, or their children control objectives, if you will, so that with a single control objective, vulnerability, right? I need to do vulnerability management. If you had multiple frameworks, when you meet compliance to that one policy, you're meeting compliance to all of those other frameworks that were automatically brought in from UCF.
Yeah, and we see that NIST CSF and ISO 27001 specifically are two we see a lot of customers using, especially with UCF. Pulling all those in and deduplicating that work. So definitely possible and a common use case.
Now, someone else had a question just about, IRM in terms of how practical it is. It was asking the question of the process of doing audit templates and audit tasks seems overwhelming as you create audit tests for each policy statement. Would you say that is accurate, or would you say that that's probably easier than it looks?
Yeah, so I think audits in general can be overwhelming.
Sure.
Lot to get done. So I'll say, I find it to be, there is some legwork to get it done there, but you kind of do it once, and I would say it's less overwhelming than doing it manually. Previous state, a lot of people are figuring this all out kind of on the fly as they're doing an audit. Maybe they have a spreadsheet somewhere, so you may need to have a lot of data you need to put into ServiceNow. But kind of once you do that, then you're set and you're good to go. I will say, if you're having any specific issues with that and really struggling, feel free to reach out. We can definitely talk about that and take a look at what you may be struggling with.
All right, and with that, I think we are at time. I want to thank everyone for joining us today and spending your lunch hour with us. I want to thank Don and Tommy for lending their expertise. It's greatly appreciated. And if you guys have any other questions, obviously feel free to reach out in the comments or questions. We'll leave this open for a couple more minutes, and hopefully we'll have a chance to see you guys at the next event. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, guys.